Welcome, fellow Wasteland survivors. I'm Dean, and thanks for stopping in and hanging out with me today. I'm super excited to show the tips and tricks that I have planned for today's video. Now, you are catching me on my permadeath play or gameplay. This is 9. Now, I'd get 9 to say hi, but she's a stone cold bitch, and that's not going to happen. Anyways, since this is my permadeath play, I really was more interested in getting through the game more than, building settlements. But I started some work here at County Crossing, and before you knew it, I had something pretty massive. Now, I've only got 11 settlers here now, but it is designed to house or hold up to 24 settlers. I've also got Trader Riley, and I've built her this pretty sweet little shack here. She also rents beds up above. Now, since I've got a pretty cool little store going for her, I thought I'd like to make a sign. So today's video, we're going to make a marquee, and we're going to add in some neon light flickering effects. Make it look like it's shorting out. Okay, first thing we're going to want to do is find some semi-flat ground. We're going to take these light boxes and we're going to make a square. This square is 12 by 8. It's 8 tall by 12 long. Now, in the marquee section, we do have some arrows with lights on them, but nothing really matched up. So what I'm doing here is creating my own arrow. I took the metal post, group selected one of the box lights, dropped it down to what I thought was about half the thickness of one of the regular box lights. Now I can just kind of move them around a little bit, and I'll be able to create a fairly cool looking arrow. Now I'm going to need 2 of these, so since I've already got the offset light box, I'm just going to go ahead and create the arrow in the first part of the next little box, and we'll work on that a little later. Now what we need to do is wire this. Now the stand that I'm going to use is going to come in 4 light boxes from each side. So it's going to be like 2 posts. So what we're going to want to do is start our electrical from each one of those light boxes that are 4 in. I think I can hide the wiring in the posts, and we won't be able to see the wires coming up to it. Now I'm going to thread this like a shoe every other light box, back and forth. Now you could try to wire glitch these boxes, every other light directly to each other, but I don't recommend that. The reason is because you're glitching the wire and there's so many of them, there's a high probability that the actual light boxes themselves will glitch. And you'll get light boxes that are on even without wiring connected to them. Now we'll just go ahead and repeat this process the rest of the way around these light boxes. Now the reason the wiring is working like this is because there's an even amount of light boxes. If there was an odd number, this wiring style wouldn't work. Also keep in mind, the more wires that you add to the light boxes, the harder it is to target a specific light box. You may have to move around or adjust your cursor to find the particular light box that you're wanting to highlight. You can see where we started there and where we finished. Now, we'll go over to the other side, on the right side, go 4 light boxes in, repeat this same process on all the light boxes that we missed, and finish it off. I'm just checking to make sure the wiring's going in the right direction. It is. I do recommend to check and recheck when you're doing massive wiring like this. Also, it doesn't hurt to hook it up to power to make sure that it is wired correctly. Every other light box is on. Also, I did the other every other light boxes and checked those ones as well. Now all we need to do, finish off this light box and wire it. Okay, now that our box lights are made and designed, I need a couple of these pictures. And I'm going to use this tree to place the picture on and then this concrete post to group select it to pull it off. I'm going to need 2 of those pictures. I'm also going to need 2 of these gun rack displays. And I'll do the same process, put it on the tree, use the concrete post to pull them off. Now I'll use the concrete post and an electrical conduit piping, group select one of the pictures, and I'm going to bring it over to one of our light box squares and, just line this up. I do recommend to take a lot of time in doing this. Now, you don't really need to save because it's just real easy to pull the picture off, put it back to the tree, bring it back over again. But a lot of these you could probably save just in case you made a mistake. Looks really good and it's on there nicely. Okay, now I've got this stand from the ball track section. The only way you can do this is if you group select it with a concrete or metal post. I've brought it over to our sign, and if you remember right, it's 4 light boxes in from each side. So I've lined it up and placed it in there. Now I do think it's a little bit too close to the surface, but I think it'll be okay. Now I'll use the concrete pillar, group select everything, bring it over to our second sign, and line it up the best I can. Once again, you want to take a great amount of time and care in lining this up. Before you did this part, a save wouldn't hurt, because if you mess this up, you have to tear it all apart and rebuild it again. And yeah, that looks really good. I think we did a great job. Everything looks lined up. It's nice and tight, nice and close. Yeah, I like that. I think it's going to work out fine. Okay, now we can use a concrete pillar, group select this gun display rack, bring it over, line it up the best we can. Go ahead, place it down. We'll grab the second one. We'll go on the other side, line it up as well. Once we get these all lined up nice and straight, we'll go ahead, we'll group select the whole sign and lift it up. Now we're ready to work on some of the electrical. We're going to put some of it in right here on site. And yeah, that really looks good. Now what I'm going to do is jump into the electrical conduit section, and I'm going to pull out this longest straight conduit pipe. What I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to be able to set these electrical conduits on top of it. And then they're going to be a way that we can run power up to our sign. And then we'll even add more on a little later to help create fields. Now I'll just use our wire glitch to connect our bottom light boxes in where we started our wiring. And yeah, it's working great. The wires are a little bit exposed, so I'm going to have to make some changes to where the electrical conduit actually sets at the bottom. And now by moving it where it's at now, we have very little wiring showing going up to our light boxes. Now I'll go ahead and add in more electrical conduits on the conduit pipe, and we're going to need 10. A total of 10 electrical conduits. We've got 4 on each side, so we'll put 2 in the middle. And that should give us everything that we need to run all of our power. Now, a concrete pillar won't work to group select everything. Because the ball tracks are as long as a metal post, we're going to use a metal post from here on out to move that sign around. Now I've laid some carpets out, and I'm going to place 10 of these electrical conduits on top of the carpets. I need 10 here to match the 10 that are on our sign. Once I get these all laid out and spaced correctly, how I like them, then I'll connect each and every one of these up to our sign. Now our sign is going to have 3 different animations running it. Our first animation is going to be for the light boxes. So the first 2 conduits have to be connected to the conduits that are connected to our light boxes. Now we can go ahead and connect all the other electrical conduits up to each other, and it doesn't matter how you do it. All that matters is if you put the first two that are going to run the light boxes to the conduits that are connected to the light boxes. Now we'll go ahead and take this metal post, we'll group select our entire sign, and we'll go ahead and put it in where it's going to be. From now on, that's where it's going to be. We'll never move it again. We're going to start creating electrical fields here shortly. Now I'll go ahead, grab out this larger carpet, put our carpets that have our electrical conduits on it, and now we got a pretty good little base to start running our interval switches. Now our first animation is a continuous animation. It's the simplest continuous animation that you can make. It requires 2 interval switches and 1 delayed on switch. The delayed on switch can be programmed at 1 second before it comes on. Now we'll go ahead and program the interval switches. They'll be programmed at 1 second on, 1 second off. Once we've done that, we can go ahead, disconnect our wires, and connect up our interval switches to each other. Now we'll connect power to the first interval switch and a delayed on switch. Then we'll connect the delayed on switch to the second interval switch. Now, basically what this is you're powering the delayed on switch, which in 1 second will come on, that will then power the interval switch. But the other interval switch is connected directly to power. So one comes on, when one goes off, the other one comes on. And because of optical illusion, it looks like it's tracing around our sign and going into the arrow. And we'll check the other side. Yes, it's working great too. And once again, because of optical illusion, it looks like it's tracing around and going into the arrow. Our second animation is another continuous animation. And actually, it's exactly the same thing as our first animation. There are some differences though. It's got 2 interval switches, which will program at 1 second on, 1 second off. The delayed on switch will be programmed at 2 seconds on instead of 1 second. That's the difference of this animation. What it's going to do is it's going to blend in with our third animation, and we'll see that shortly. Now I'll connect it up exactly the same way as I did our first animation, where power goes to the delayed on switch, then to an interval switch, power goes to the interval switch, and then both interval switches go to our sign. But before I do that, what I need to do is create our first field. So I've connected power up to our line, and we're going to go ahead and start placing out some neon lettering. Now, since Trader Riley is from Vault 84, she's got the blue vault suit, I thought we'd use a lot of blue in our sign and our neon. Now, we're going to have 3 different words on this gun display rack. So what I'm doing is I'm actually sorting out where each word is going to go, and I'm placing markers out for them. Now that I've got that done, I can go ahead and put the first word in, which will be buy. And there we go. Now our first field has blue neon buy. Our second field I think we'll make green, and it's going to be sell. So I'll move these neon letters over accordingly to create the word sell. Damn, that wind is a-blowing outside. I really hope you guys can't hear that. I do apologize if you do. Some of you might have some pretty sensitive headphones. Okay, sell is up. Now let's connect it to power, see how it's working. The way it's supposed to work is it should say buy, sell, then have 1 second before it starts over again. It's actually saying sell buy. So all I had to do was just swap the two wires from our interval switches, and now it says buy sell, then has 1 second before it goes off. We'll add another word in there for that second, but it will be connected to our other animation. But before we do that, we need to create our fields, and we got 5 of them to make. So our first word to go up is going to be trader. Now actually I should have done this a little bit later in our fields, but all this did was just make me have to swap some wiring back at our interval switches. Now in this same field I'm going to need a few more letters to go with it. And the first ones are in trader. And I think what I want to do is use the letter T and the letter E to do it. Now sometimes when doing this, some of your letters will snap together. If you just move them around, keep snapping them, they'll eventually become unsnapped from one another, and then no problem. So I'll delete everything, leave the T and the E up. Alright, now I think that I would like to get a couple of more letters up there, and we should do it from the word Riley. It's going to say Trader Riley. So I think what we'll do is we'll use the Y and the L in this particular word. And then we'll go ahead and take everything else off. Now we'll go ahead and create a second field that we can place our lettering on. Now I'll put the word trader back up again, and this time I'm on the other side, because don't forget, you got 2 sides of the sign. So even though I've been only showing one, we're actually doing this on 2 different sides. Now I need to place more letters on top of letters that are up in this new field. They're not snapping, but it was just as simple as adding another letter to the bottom or the side. You could do it from any direction, and then your new letter would actually snap in there. And we'll do it on the other side as well. The R, the L, the E, and now we've got everything in this field. Now we're creating our third field. We're not going to be doing trade this time. All we're going to do is just all of the blue lettering that were on the sign. Now I toyed with this for a minute to actually put in some different colored letters here instead of all blue. So, I didn't do that. You guys might want to try that. It might be cool to see this as, some different colored lettering instead of all the same color. And we'll just create another field, put some more lettering up. Like I said, we'll have to do this 5 times. So, on all the blue letters, there are 5 letters there in total. So the T, E, Y, and L on this side have a total of 5, as well as the R, E, and L on the other side. Now trade on our gun rack display case only has 2. Now we do have one more field to create, and what this field is it will be on all the time. So it's just going to be all the rest of our lettering to spell out Trader Riley. We'll get all that up. Oop, little idiot servant. I like it. And there we go. So now all the letters that aren't affected by our animation are on. And that's what that field is. Okay, time for our third and final animation, and this one would actually be classified as a recycling animation. It requires 1 interval switch and 4 delayed on switches. I can program the interval switch, the first 2, and last delayed on switch all at the same time. The interval switch will be set at 2 seconds on, 1 second off. Now the intervals or delayed on switches will all be set at 1/4 second on. And now we can go ahead and program the last delayed on switch by itself, which is the third delayed on switch, or the 4th pole in the entire chain. And now this one will be programmed at 1/2 second. Now what we can do is connect all of our poles together. Interval switch to the first delayed on switch, and so on across the line. Now we're going to need 4 delayed off switches, and we're going to go ahead and program them individually as well. We can program the first 2 and the last one at the same time. They'll actually be programmed for 1/8 of a second before it goes off. Now we can go ahead and hook up and program our third delayed off switch, because it has a different time, and the time on this one will be set at 1/4 of a second instead of 1/8. Now we'll go ahead and connect our interval switch to the first delayed off switch. We'll connect our first delayed on switch to the second delayed off switch, and so on. The only thing that doesn't get a delayed off switch is our very last switch, our delayed on switch. Now I'll go ahead and connect the first 2 lines up to the end of our animation. If you remember right, I said I should have done that last. So what it is when it starts off, it does these first 3, and then those 2 are the last part of the animation. Now all we got to do is connect it up to power, and we can see if it's working. What it should be doing, and it is for the first second we should be getting a flicker off, and then the second is a flicker on. In the second, the trade should be flickering with it, and it's working perfectly. Now let's go ahead and connect all the rest of our animations up, connect them to power, and see how it's actually working. But I almost forgot and didn't connect our main power up. So here it is, all working together. As you can see, it says buy, sell, and then trade flickers. So that's connected to our third animation and our flickering lights. Now I think let's just make up a switch and this little electrical sign, and now what we can do is we can sync all of our electrical switches, or our interval switches, into the ground, and this will mark where they're at, plus we can turn them on and off if they ever quit working correctly. Because I have size glitched this settlement almost 3 times its normal size, there are problems like this that arise. Now I'll just go ahead and connect our interval switches up to our on and off switch, or our power switch, set them in the ground. Yep, looks good, can't see nothing. Okay, now there's one thing I'd like to mention before we go today, and it's just because I programmed these switches with the programming that I did does not mean it's the only way to do this. I wanted flicker on, that's 3 poles. Then in the second it would be flicker on. That's 2 more poles. That's why our third recycling animation has 5 poles in total in its animation. You could do as many poles as you'd like. You can do the times any time that you would like. You can do individual letters. I mean, there is so many ways that you can do this. It's just really entirely up to you and how much time that you want to spend doing it. Because that's what it really boils down to. How much time do you want to invest in creating these kind of projects? Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's about it for today's video. I really appreciate you coming, spending your precious time with me. I hope the video was informative and, helped you with a few things that you might have had questions with or just didn't even know. Alright, thanks again, everybody. I do appreciate you all. And just like always, until next time, please stay safe and peace.